Hey everybody, this is herculespetix, founder, curator, docent, and gift shop employee of the herculespetix Academy of Comic Book Studies. Today we're going to be looking at Quack number 6, finishing our examination of this ground level funny animal anthology comic. We start off with a Ted Richards cover, illustrating the title story, Quirk, Son of Quack. Always like Ted Richards cartooning. Very old-timey, nice stuff. Introduction from Mike Friedrich, and we start off with the Ted Richards story. Apparently, he had an inking assist from J. Michael Leonard and Larry Gonick. So, this is about Dr. Quincy Quack, kind of the mad scientist of Chitterland County. That's where Easy Wolf is from. Up till now, he's been the side character in Easy Wolf. And he has isolated the first Quirk. He's got this dim-witted robot, kind of his little assistant. And he says, wait a second, I'll put the Quirk inside the robot, and it'll give him common sense. That makes no sense scientifically, but it's a comic book, so... So like Dr. Frankenstein, he's gonna give life to this robot, new life. Meanwhile, his wife is all frustrated because he hasn't even held her hand in weeks. He's been obsessed with this new creation. So the robot comes to life, and he's got like a cute little baby. And the wife takes an instant liking to him. She's like, oh, we'll raise him as our own son. He's so cute. Of course, this robot pretty soon becomes a little brat who's destroying things around the house. They're very annoyed, and pretty soon they just start neglecting him. And so this little robot is just basically raised by the TV, and due to that, his diction is just a kind of a weird patois of just commercial jingles and things from cop shows. It's just all this weird melange of TV jargon. Soon neglect turns to abuse. It's kind of cruel. They just start like torturing this poor little robot. They rub him with a wool cloth because he can't stand the static electricity. And then one day, Quirk discovers his true friends, the electrons, by playing with this cord from a power outlet. And they talk to him, and they basically infuse him with their electrical energy. And he, I guess it sets fire to a lot of the things in the house, and he runs outside. He's on a little rampage. And so Dr. Quack is chasing after him. He gets zapped by his little robot son. The whole time he's just speaking gibberish. So Dr. Quack, after fruitlessly trying to, subdue his robot kid, he says, wait, I got an idea. Meanwhile, Quirk is at playing near the electrical plant, and Dr. Quack rolls up to it with this TV set. It's too late though. Quirk has already destroyed the town. The town below. So basically all it is a TV set. But he figures that if he puts PBS on, it'll act as a tranquilizer. And it works. Quirk is just kind of lulled into this state by watching the TV. He finally gets him back in the house, but then the angry townsfolk who survived the destruction of the town, they're basically made a hanging party. They got a noose and baseball bats and clubs and torches, because they know that Quack is probably responsible. Quack is always in this world. Quack is always playing with, tampering with nature and science and causing trouble. So Dr. Quack throws Quirk to the crowd and says, it's all his fault. I had nothing to do with it. So as they tear him to pieces, it turns out that was just basically an extra Quirk body he had. He says the real Quirk shall live. And he has this little spaceship already, and he puts Quack in it and sends it off to safety. It's almost like a baby Kal-El. And the wife says, "It's okay, honey. You can make another one someday." And we see him orbiting Earth. We see Quack orbiting Earth. Odd little story. Next, we have another Range Rabbit story featuring Newton, the Rabbit Wonder, by Steve Aloha. A couple episodes ago, we looked at an underground comic called High Adventure, which featured Steve Aloha's first published work. It's amazing in 4 years just how good he's gotten. This is just gorgeous cartooning. Steve Aloha was mostly an inker. The inks are just beautiful and lush in this. And he's a great penciler, a very good funny animal penciler. I mean, look at that. I love the way he draws Newton. So this is kind of where we left off last time, where Range Rabbit is still hanging out with that John Drake fellow, the special agent. They're both on the trail of El Draco, the criminal mastermind, who also happens to be John Drake's twin brother. They're on the stagecoach. I guess there's all this gold on it. And they head off. On the stagecoach is this fox lady and her son, her bratty son. Newton tries to hit on the fox lady and no dice. We see these, someone's checking out the progress of the stagecoach as it goes across the bridge. The little boy grabs Drake's guns. He's like, "Give those back to me, kid." Just being a little brat. And then a tree falls down in front of the stagecoach, obviously felled by El Draco. It's an ambush. I like how even the horses are holding their hands up. For some reason, they're wearing basketball shirts. And it turns out that the little kid isn't a real little kid. And him and the fox lady, they're in on it. They pull guns on Newton and John and say, "Get out of the stagecoach." They're in cahoots with El Draco. So El Draco rides off with the fox lady and the gold. I love that little inset panel. Really nice drawing. And look at this shadowy woods. So Newton basically just says, "I'm going to go find the closest sheriff." And he gets lost in the woods. Meanwhile, we see a cabin where the gang is hanging out, El Draco's gang. And just by luck, it turns out that Newton has stumbled upon their cabin. He breaks in. Only the fox lady's there. And it's kind of a weird scene. He just starts unloading on her for some reason. She says, "Didn't your mom ever teach you manners?" And he says, "My mama, I was an orphan." And he just starts telling her this whole sob story about him and his 17 siblings fending for themselves. And she's all consoling him. Meanwhile, El Draco's outside. He snuck outside. I'm sorry, this is John Drake. John Drake has also stumbled upon the cabin. And he's like, "Oh man, that rabbit, screw him. I'm going to get El Draco. I'm going to get my twin brother myself." So he finds El Draco and they start fighting. And meanwhile, Newton is having sex with the fox lady. He's still like complaining about his life as he's having sex. They hear a big sound from outside, a loud sound. And when they go out, they see John Drake, who obviously got the worst of the fracas. And him and John Drake run back into the cabin so they can question the fox lady. And she's hiding under the bed. So at gunpoint, they take her to the nearest town. They put her into custody. And John Drake and Newton take another stagecoach, and they're headed to another place where they think that El Draco will be. So this is going to be continued in the next issue, which never came out, so it's not to be continued. And I don't think we ever found out what happened to this story. I don't think it ever appeared anywhere. I could be wrong. Next, we have a little note from Mike Friedrich. This is just weird, like how Mike Friedrich just keeps having these like little honesty attacks. It kind of gives you more information than you want. So apparently U-All Gibbon was going to be in this issue, Scott Shaw's comic. And he says, apparently it's not now. Scott explained his failure to deliver on time as having other priorities. He has also expressed a loss of respect for Quack and myself here at Star Reach as explanation for a lack of enthusiasm to finish his story. So it's kind of weird how, like, Mike Friedrich seems to have run-ins with artists and he just pulls their strip or they pull the strip. And then he, like, tells us all about it. So I don't know. Maybe Scott Shaw, I hear, is a pretty friendly guy. So I don't know why I care so much, but I'm so fascinated now by this Quacker gate. And I want to know the real story. Was Mike Friedrich a pain in the ass to work with? Or are these other artists a bunch of flakes? So because they didn't have the story at the last minute, they reprint The Duccaneer from the very first issue of Quack, which is only like a year old. Kind of dumb. But it's a beautiful story. Beautiful Frank Brenner story and art. With nice inks by Steve Leialoha. And since we just looked at this a few episodes ago, let's not dwell on it too much. I guess maybe this is better than having more Oregon Bobcat stories. I don't know. This is really interesting. It's The Fleetfoot Fool. And this is written and drawn by Lee Mars. The, well, I guess underground cartoonist, but also has done a lot outside of undergrounds. Very odd story where there's this woman, her name's Fern, and she's always been fascinated by feet. It's not like she has a kinky fetish or anything. She just is fascinated. She decided to devote her life to the pursuit of excellence, to invent the perfect shoe. And so she works on it. Of course, there's no money in it, so she realizes, I need money. So she tries showing the shoe around. Basically, the shoe, it's an everlasting shoe. And one size fits all somehow. So, of course, the shoe companies are like, are you crazy? If we'd be out of business in 2 months if we sold the shoe. Nobody would ever have to buy new shoes. And we see this variety of other crappy shoes. And she's like, it drives her crazy. She's like, I have to make the perfect shoe. These are all shit. Everything else in the market. So she gets all these menial jobs and saves up her money so she can make the perfect shoe. And it works. She calls it the Fleetfoot Fool. And it's so weird. The bottom of the shoe, wing spread of a bald eagle, grip of a cougar, strong suction of an octopus, push of a Hollywood press agent. And it's made from boa constrictor skin, which contracts or expands with the foot. Very strange. So it's like this shoe made from all of nature. She goes to the White House and kind of barges in on Jimmy Carter. I'm sorry, I forgot to mention a very important fact. For some reason, when you put these shoes on, you can run super fast, faster than light. You can just zip around. So, of course, she's like, oh, my God, this will change the whole world. Nobody will need cars anymore. And so she goes to Jimmy Carter in the White House, who I think is a pig. And the secret agents barge in. But Jimmy says, okay, let's give her a chance. Stand down, guys. And he tests them. 3 weeks later, he says, you were right. These are amazing. But, unfortunately, the repercussions to, our transit-based economy, it would be disastrous. So you must keep these shoes a secret. And then all of a sudden, everyone turns menacing and they're like, get those shoes. She escapes. It's so weird seeing Jimmy Carter as like the evil bastard. So there's a dragnet for this woman, for Fern. And she decides, fuck this. And, I can't trust the government. I can't trust a business, big business. So she becomes a thief. Using her super speed, she runs around grabbing money from shoe stores. And then she finally has her little factory. And she builds a bunch of these special shoes. And she just gives them out for free. She parachutes them down on the city. And the whole state is transformed. We see all these people just whooshing 1,000 miles an hour. People are like, oh, I can take that job in Duluth and you can keep yours here. We can just run home every night. It would be nice. And then all of a sudden the cops barge in. And look, it's Columbo. It's a Columbo dog. And, but of course, Fern puts on her shoes and she hightails it out of there and escapes. Columbo dog's even saying, there's just one thing. Kind of a cute little story. So next, you wouldn't even get it by looking at this first panel. It kind of looks like Matt Howarth. This is a new Wraith tale by Michael T. Gilbert, Fear. Man, look at that. I would never guess this is a Michael T. Gilbert story, especially a Wraith one. So one day, the Wraith and Ivory are taking a stroll, and they're having a conversation. And look at this. Michael T. Gilbert apparently bought an airbrush since last issue. He's playing around with that. It looks pretty slick. I really like these pages, the long vertical panels. I'm always a sucker for that. And they start talking about fear. Ivory says, you're the super cool crime fighter. Did you ever get afraid? And he says, sure I do. And then he starts talking about fear, the concept of fear. And as he's talking about it, we see almost the abstract notion of fear, like a wraith, or a specter, kind of almost becoming more solid. It's almost like he's summoning fear. It seems to be getting stronger and stronger as he talks about how sometimes he feels so insecure, and talks about the demons within, all those dark spots hidden inside that we try to bury. But then he says, but you know what I've learned is no matter how much I'm afraid of fear, I fear itself, is I have a very effective method now of dealing with it. I laugh. And just as it seems like fear is going to overwhelm these two, the Wraith starts tickling Ivory. And she starts tickling him back. They get a little tickle brawl. And when they do that, fear shrinks and dissipates to nothing. She says, do you smell something? Smoke? Brimstone? Sulfur? And he says, nah, that's just your imagination. And they walk off. So this isn't much of a story, just a little interlude. But man, what a nice comic. Really interesting, this discourse they have. And then this whole really cool looking personification of fear. And so we get a second little vignette, Wraith vignette. This is A Christmas Carol. This is inks by Al Gordon. And he has a letterer finally, Mary McAllister, who I've never seen before. And so the Wraith is singing Christmas carols, and everyone seems to offend someone. He says, I'm dreaming of a white Christmas. And there's a guy with a Black Power sign. And the guy says, not cool, O Faye. Then he says, God rest you, merry gentlemen. And there's Ivory. I think that's Ivory, with a woman power sign. And he's like, merry gentle person? Try again, sexist swine. He says, I don't even know this Christmas carol. Good Christian men rejoice with heart and soul. There's a Jewish power guy standing there. He doesn't like that. And then I don't get this one at all. He's singing Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, and this NRA guy is offended by it. So then finally the Wraith is like, enough of this shit. Look here, guys. Have you forgotten what the season's all about? Smile, it's Christmas time. And then they just all say Merry Christmas to all. And we have this total, almost like a Quack yearbook photo, where we see all the characters that have been in Quack. Mostly, these are all the guys that have been in the Wraith comics. All the various villains and sidekicks and cohorts. And all the creators of Quack sign here. Mike Friedrich, Ted Richards, Scott Shaw, even people who aren't in this issue. And I noticed that there's no Alan Cooperberg signature here. And apparently there was a contest. If you could name everyone in this picture, Michael T. Gilbert would give you the original art back then. We see that Ken Macklin, Goofball, Easy Wolf, Ewald Gibbons, Newton. There's the Oregon Bobcat. And I assume this is Frank Brenner's version of a duck. There's so many of these comics that they all look the same. They all look like Howard the Duck. That's kind of cute. And then we have a really nice Steve Lee Aloha back cover showing this foxy lady who I never caught her name. But pretty nice. So there you go, guys. Quack number 6, the end of the run for Quack. And pretty soon we'll start looking at another anthology. But I hope you guys like looking at this. Kind of a weird little comic. And just some really good stuff came out of this. God, just the Wraith stories alone are worth owning this comic. But there's plenty of nice other nice stuff. So hope you like looking at it. Hope you like this video. And I hope to see you next time here at the Herculespetix Academy of Comic Book Studies.